Centuria is a dark fantasy style manga by Toru Kuromori, which centers around Julian, a young boy who escapes a harrowing life after killing the blacksmith his mother sold him to. Fleeing as a stowaway on a slave ship, Julian forms a bond with a kind pregnant slave named Mira and others in their tight-knit group. Tragedy strikes when the ship's indebted crew massacres the slaves, triggering the intervention of an eldritch sea entity. This entity grants Julian the combined strength and perspective of the 100 lives of the slain slaves, including Mira's, in exchange for their blood. Tasked with raising Mira's newborn daughter, Deanna, Julian ventures into a perilous new land filled with monsters, political intrigue, and a prophecy that marks Deanna as a future threat to the kingdom's enigmatic king. In this unforgiving world, supernatural abilities called gifts are bestowed by otherworldly beings like sea entities or forest gods, often requiring steep costs such as human sacrifices. These gifts, marked by unique body markings, vary in power and carry ambiguous motives, as seen in Julian's enhanced strength and lives and Deanna's prophesized role in the kingdom's potential downfall, possibly linked to a deity of night or a mysterious black goat, which hasn't been explored in a very long time. The royal family, including the king and his son Arcos, wielding hereditary gifts, raising questions about their divine legitimacy and moral implications. Supported by allies like the late knight Angval and former mercenary Lucas, Julian fights to protect Deanna while grappling with the uncertain nature of these gifts, whether they are blessings or manipulations, amid opposition from figures like the prophetess Elstree, who exploits their ambiguity to challenge them. The story is currently expanding, with the contents of some of the more recent chapters, with Lucas being revealed to not only be an illegitimate son of the king, but also because of that, is a member of the Black Knights in the castle, known to others as the Faceless Black Knight. Some of the witches are starting to show themselves to Deanna as they know that she is the child born of the deceased Mira that was possessed by the same sea god that gave Julian his powers. It is her birthday and they give her a present, though we as the readers don't know what it is yet. Within this most recent chapter, the coven known as the Ladies of Midnight have a few members that come to stop Elstree, Altus, and Helm. The whole chapter was spent with Helm having Altus fight the members of Ladies of Midnight that we have here, where he was getting his ass kicked for the majority of the chapter without doing much back. And although Altus looks bloodied up, we end the chapter with a page like this, where a voice from deep within his soul is calling Altus pathetic. And my prediction for who that is that it has to be Arcos, somehow still able to see his reanimated self. In the start of chapter 63, we get a flashback to two of the gifted assassins from Elstree's party discussing their time at the Western War with the Western military campaign. Eyepatch here is talking about the Supreme Lord having ulterior motives. And real quickly, part of me can agree with that, because we have already heard that the witches called the Ladies of Midnight were around 400 years old, and Helm said that the Supreme Lord fought them back then, meaning that he has to have a pretty powerful gift, especially if it was said that Arcos and the Supreme Lord had their gifts inherited. But back to the discussion about the Western War. We get a very welcome return mention of the unrivaled cloaked knight herself, Angval Selma, who surprisingly was the culprit for the fall of Rumir alongside the Lord of Water, Prince Arcos, which explains it being sunk in the sea despite being located far inland. And Eyepatch further mentions that due to the prince's status, the carnage was not reported, which was to be expected of the royalty in my opinion. Coming back to that voice that Altus hears at the end of chapter 62, it was the voice of Arcos, but it seems suspicious to me at least. His gift marking seems to be right, but he is just a floating head in Altus's subconscious, and to me seems pretty weirdly in tune that he has only 30 seconds a day to control his body, that is more being controlled by a double. Not to say that this wouldn't be possible. To be honest, I don't know if that would be possible or not within the story, because, we have Julian coming back to life over and over, no matter what happens to him. I just think it could also be whatever entity it was that gifted the original member of the royal family the gift, that was waiting for the perfect puppet-like opportunity with someone whose body is so in tune with the gift that he was inherited with. That would be the worst case scenario in my opinion, because you would have a situation like the sea god says with Julian and Deanna possibly taking over their bodies to be the perfect vessel, if I'm remembering that correctly. And not that Arcos actually being able to come back 30 seconds a day isn't bad enough. It just could also be slightly worse. Regardless of if this is actually the consciousness of Arcos, or of the entity that gifted the family in the first place, They made quick work of the nun and Elise witches, and we are left at the end of the chapter with the ominous-looking Altos or Arcos or whoever, with the message of, "The source of all life is now the instrument of death." This line at the end of the chapter makes me think that regardless of if it is the gift that you were granted gives you the ability to come back to life, I think that if the one gifting wills it, then someone can come back with conditions. This could be the reason why, if it is Arcos, he is coming back only for 30 seconds a day. With this being the case, possibly having stipulations with having the ability to return for 30 seconds could increase the power or variety of use of his power. One example could be in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Katara running into a person who can use, and then she finally is able to use herself, the ability to use the bloodbending, using the water in their body to control their body. Then again, as I'm skimming through the early chapters of this series, trying to get pictures for my videos, I see that he is doing just that, having some of the civilians floating in the air with his gift. So that kind of already is happening. I'm curious to see if something like a power-up like that could happen if my theory about the situation with Arcos and or Altos is actually true. With not having seen Julian's crew this or last chapter, I'm looking forward to seeing how their group can stick together and get healed, while eventually getting to safety away from Elstree and Helm and their assassin crew. But that's going to wrap up Centuria for today, and I'll see you in the next video.